Well, hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of Unstoppable Mindset. We're really glad that you're here with us today. Our guest today is Kassandra Hamilton from up in British Columbia way, and she has, I think, a lot to talk about. She's a coach. She talks about burnout, but also about her many talents. She sings. She's a musician, and on top of everything else, she's an author, and she just wrote a book that has just come out. So we've got lots to talk about, or she has lots to talk about, and we'll talk about it with her. So, Kassandra, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're glad you're here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael. I'm really grateful to be here today.
Well, I'm excited. There's obviously a lot to talk about, I think. So tell us a little bit about the early Kassandra growing up and all the usual things. You know, you got to start at the beginning somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. So as a kid, I mean, I've always been curious. My mom used to get very puzzled by me as a child because I would always ask, like, who is God and how is the world made? And I just had all these questions, and it just never really stopped. When I was 6, I had a vision of helping people and healing them with my hands. And I just saw this light between my hands and other people. And it was this recurring dream I kept having, and I didn't understand it in the practical sense. So I pursued a very traditional, career in medicine because that's what made sense to me and the social conditions that we had in front of us. And that didn't really pan out for me. It wasn't resonating. I felt like the system was very rigid. And I just have always been fascinated with more of a holistic picture of someone, like their physical, emotional, spiritual selves. And so just focusing on the physical alone just wasn't cutting it for me. I knew there was so much more, and I was so curious about all of that. So yeah, I've gone through different sort of journeys on my path, and come back to a place of really wanting to be of service, and share some of the tools and strategies that I've learned along the way.
Well, you started down the road of going into medicine, didn't you?
Hmm.
And what was your master's in? Because I know you had your master's degree, and then you started working with doctors. What did you get your master's degree in?
Yeah, so I completed a Master's of Science, because it was in the stream of global health.
Ah,
And so I was really fascinated by the multifaceted aspect of that and not just looking at physical impact in the world. We looked at, political and economic, geographic indicators of health.
okay.
Um, Really gave me that sort of overall vision of what health looks like from that bird's eye view. And then I wanted to pursue medicine after that because, again, I wanted to be of service to others. But I ended up working with doctors to see if that's actually what I wanted to do. And I just saw the amount of burnout that doctors were experiencing and how 80% of their workload was paperwork.
Mm.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
so,
good.
what did you do?
So I left that work. I was there for 2 years, and I wasn't buying it. So I left. I started my own company as a consultant, and realized that a lot of the issues I was seeing abroad, we had a lot of gaps here in Canada, especially with our Indigenous communities. The disparities there were huge, and so I focused my energy for the last decade on working with Indigenous communities and unlearning a lot of sort of colonial ways of doing things and really integrating the holistic health model that is presented from that culture that I was working with. And it's really been transformative and instrumental in the way that I approach health now.
Well, I'm curious about something sort of off the wall. I appreciate what you're saying about paperwork. And I'm sure there are all sorts of legalistic reasons why there has to be so much paperwork and so on in the medical world, especially when everybody's so concerned about things like malpractice and all that. But do you think any of that has gotten any better, or how has it changed as we are progressing more to a paperless or different kind of charting system where everything is done from a computer terminal. I'm spoiled. My doctors are with Kaiser Permanente, and everything is all done on wireless or at least on non-paper chart types of things that they're just typing into the computer actually as we're communicating and we're talking and I'm in visiting and so on. But everything is all done online. What do you think about that? Does that help any?
So, very great question. So, when we're talking about accessibility, I'm going to say no, not for Indigenous communities, at least here in Canada. I'll speak from my experience,
Yeah.
but things have gone digital. And actually, what I was doing was working as a digital health consultant to bridge health gaps in digital systems because what was happening and what still happens is there's systems that are quite siloed. And so a lot of health centers that are remote will be using paper still, or they'll
Mm.
be using one system for that and another system for this. And so there's no wraparound diligence around the client. And so there is this huge accessibility issue, which is what I've been working on for the last 10 years.
Well, do you think that as well, hopefully you'll see more paperless kinds of things go into play, but do you think in areas where the paper quantity has decreased and the online or digital chart systems have come into play, does that help burnout at all, do you think?
Again, you know what? It really depends. Like you're only as good as your system allows. And so if you haven't allowed for inclusivity and for example, a lot of the work that was funded in the first couple years that I was doing, there was no due diligence to figure out whether or not these remote areas even had internet. So without internet, they were pumping money into all of these systems that were super high tech, not culturally appropriate. A lot of elders don't even own a computer, let alone a smartphone or anything like that, or have service. So there was a huge disconnect there. And so part of the work I've been doing is a lot of advocacy and helping um, government agencies understand the the connecting pieces that are instrumental in the success of digital health implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, here, um, I know a fair amount about the whole digital chart system because my sister in law was a critical care unit nurse at Kaiser, and then she managed several wards. And then she was tasked to be the head nurse for on the profit side to help bring digital charts into Kaiser.
Mm.
And so I heard a lot about it from her, and especially all the doctors who opposed it just because they didn't want any change. They wanted to just do things the way that they had always done them.
Yeah.
And so the result is that they kind of got dragged kicking and screaming into it a little bit. But now I hear people mostly praising the whole system because it makes their job a lot easier. On
Hmm.
the other hand, the other thing that happens though is the system crams more patients into a doctor's appointment schedule every day, and so I'm not sure they're always seeing as much of patients as they should of any given patient. But I guess they have more doctors that specialize in different things, so no matter what happens, the doctors can all see whatever there is to see because everything is in the chart.
Right. And so absolutely in theory and in urban areas where that works, the digital systems are set up properly, absolutely. But in terms of going back to your question about burnout, if there's one nurse for one community and she's
Sure.
having to chart in five different, systems, then it's actually going to add to her burnout at the end of the day. Yeah,
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, so clearly there's still quite a disparity, but it
yeah.
does sound like in areas where they're able to truly bring digital charts and capturing information digitally into the system, where that does exist, it can make people's lives, doctors' lives, and so on a little bit easier, and maybe contribute a little bit less to burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's the hope, and that's, why we continue to do the work to bring it into this, especially with AI too, like bringing more efficiency into the workplace, and it's all part of it. So yes, absolutely. There's definitely some hope and some, leaner ways of doing things for a lot of people. So yeah,
Yeah, and I hope it will continue to get better and that the influence will expand so that the more rural areas and so on will be able to get the kinds of things that the more urban areas have now. I live in an area that's fairly urban, but we don't have a Kaiser hospital up here. We have clinics, but we don't have a hospital. And apparently, there's now finally some movement toward making that happen. But it's interesting where we used to live in Northern California, we lived in a very, what was, although we weren't, but was a rich county. And there were 200,000 people or so in the county. And there was a Kaiser hospital in the county. There was a Kaiser hospital about 30 miles away in San Francisco. And there were Kaiser hospitals going north, 15, 20 miles further north in Petaluma. So there were a lot of hospitals, but we are in an area where there are over 400,000 people now, and there isn't a Kaiser hospital here. And that just has always seemed kind of strange to me.
huh?
And the response is, well, the doctors don't want to move up here. I mean, there are all sorts of different reasons that are given, but it just seems strange. So if you really need to go to the hospital, they do have contracts that sort of work sometimes, or you have to go about 50 miles to get to the nearest actual Kaiser hospital.
Right. Huh.
So
Yeah,
it's strange.
it is strange. And there's a lot of things. Ah, who knows who made the last call on decision, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Well, again, so the rumor goes they're going to be building a hospital here, and I think that will be a good thing. So we'll
Oh,
see.
good.
We'll see how it goes. But you experienced burnout, didn't you?
I did. Yes.
Tell us about that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 27 and I
That
went
was
through
last year, right?
Yes, thank you. It was 10 years ago. But on the outside, I was thriving, Michael. I was like working for Doctors of BC. I had an apartment on the ninth floor. I had an ocean view. I had the apartment downtown. I was, dating. I was like doing all these things. I was achieving, pushing, and showing up. And inside, I was running on empty and I was very disconnected from my purpose, from myself. And that breakdown became eventually a breakthrough. But in the process, I'd lost all my grandparents and my dog, and I didn't have tools for dealing with my anxiety. And social media sort of just amplified that sort of comparative feeling. And um, I just started to slow down and like really realign. And I realized how many people were living on autopilot and surviving instead of thriving. And that's really when I wanted to become committed to helping others reclaim their purpose and their authenticity and not just bounce back from burnout, but like rise into something greater and like reconnect with themselves and their why of their purpose of being here?
Yeah, because you thought you were thriving, but you really weren't,
Yeah, exactly.
which is unfortunate. But still, those kind of things happen.
Mhm.
So what did you? So how did you go from experiencing burnout to moving forward and realigning? What did you learn? How did you discover it? And what actually happened?
So I for a long time went through my own inward journey and I went to counseling. I sought other ways of healing through energy work. I tried all the different tools and modalities. And I realized over time it meant flipping the script. And most of us live from the outside in, and we're chasing expectations and people pleasing, letting circumstances dictate our worth. And living from the inside out to me meant connecting with who I was and my values and the truth of finding my purpose and letting that be the driver. And that means having boundaries. It means speaking up when you're scared or you have fear. I know you've done a lot of work with fear and how to leverage that for a more
Mhm.
positive outcome rather than letting it stop you. So in my life, that shift has really helped me stop outsourcing my power and allowed me to show up authentically in my work and my relationships and creativity. And that's where my freedom and vitality really lives. And I really want to share that with others.
That's an interesting way that you put it. You're outsourcing your power. What do you mean by that?
I was giving my power away. I was waiting for someone else to approve of something that I did. I was showcasing my, achievements, and that was how I attached value to my identity and who I was.
And of course, what that really meant is that you, as you said, it was all about people pleasing and so on. And how did you change all that?
It wasn't overnight.
Yeah, I'll bet it wasn't.
Yeah, and so I changed all that by getting curious and by going inside. And I have a four-step process that I share in this book that I've now written. And the first step is to observe yourself. Like, how are you showing up? What kind of patterns are coming up for you? And then starting to understand, like, why? Where did those come from? And then starting to retune that part of yourself, like, okay, so that's how I'm showing up. How do I want to show up? And how can I change my patterns and how I react to things to do that? And that's how you start to sort of like flip the narrative and live from the inside out.
How do people do that? Because
How?
because we're, I think we're really trained to behave that way. We're trained to, as you would put it, all too often give your power away or outsource your power. And how do we change that mentality?
Yeah, well, we have to first observe ourselves. We have to look at, how are boundaries being used in your life, or are they even there? Are you showing up for yourself as much as you're showing up for other people? Are you being authentic in what really is in alignment with your own values? Are you living on purpose? So these things are what we look at. And then I have tools and frameworks and questions to help people really start to observe themselves from an outside perspective and ask themselves, is this really how I want to be living right now? Is this allowing me to live the life that I want?
Yeah. And is it helping me grow? And
Exactly.
that's a lot of the issue that we face. I know in my book, Live Like a Guide Dog, that was published last year, we talk a lot about the fact that people need to learn, or hopefully will learn, how to be much more introspective and analyze what they do every day and really put that analysis to work to learn, what am I afraid of? What is going on? Why am I worried about this? Because I don't have any control over it.
Mhm.
And people just don't grow up feeling that way because we don't really teach people how to learn to control fear and how to be introspective, which is part of the problem, of course.
Right. Or even how to manage our emotions, right? Like emotion is energy in motion. And if we do not allow it to move through us, it gets stuck and it shows up in our bodies as a physical ailment.
Yeah.
And that's the mind body spirit connection. That's why physical, mental, emotional health is so important to look at as as a whole, not just in silo.
So how do you teach people to take a different view than what we typically learned how to do?
Well, so once we've observed what people are how they're operating, we then start to understand where it comes from. So a lot of people are programmed either by society or early childhood experience.
Mm-hmm.
is. And then they are just operating on autopilot from those patterns, but they don't know that. So once you start, like, awareness is everything. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. So at that point, it's like, okay, how can we move from this place to where you want to be? And so I have a lot of tools for understanding and processing your emotions in real time. I have tools for understanding and managing like your nervous system. I look at it from a science and health background as well as a spiritual background. So it's like blending the two and understanding that healing isn't just physical. And mindfulness and slowing down and journaling and just taking the time to actually try and understand yourself.
So, how has all of this changed how you live your life?
Well, since I started operating in a different way, I bought a house, I bought another house, I bought another house. Wrote a book. I changed careers. I am coaching people now. I'm just like really living in my element and my full purpose, which is I have this written on my wall that I want to help others rediscover their magic so we can all fly together. So it's really about spreading positive ripple effects in the world, but starting at home and in our communities. And I believe that that inside out ripple effect is so much more powerful than anything we can do out there.
Just so that we get it out there, what's the title of the book?
It's called The Magic of Realigning from the Inside Out.
Since we talked about it, I figured we better get the title out there.
Yeah, thank you.
And there is a picture of the book cover and so on in the show notes, but I just wanted to make sure that you did tell people the title.
Thank
Well, tell me, is there an incident or a moment where you realized that your work could really create change in someone's life?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've been asked that a few times, and the answer is that I just have a very strong morning practice where I journal. And throughout that journaling, the last few years, I realized my process of integrating all of these tools and what it's done for me. And it just became like, again, me observing myself through the pages and recognizing that it was my responsibility to share this work that I had done with other people, and not from a place of ego, but really from that place of wanting to share stories and experiences in hopes that it will inspire others to, take the time to get curious and courageous about their own lives.
Did you have any kind of an aha moment or a moment with anyone besides yourself that really caused you to realize, oh, I'm really making a difference here? I'm really able to do this, and it makes a lot of sense to do what I'm doing.
Well, it's so funny because informally, all of my friends will come to me for, advice or coaching or reframing or whatever. And then eventually I was like, man, I should get paid for this. So,
And they're not your friends anymore because now you're charging them, right?
yeah. So it's something that I've always really wanted to do, and I've always been fascinated by people and how their brains work and what their resistance to change is, including my own. And yeah, I guess I just sort of had this moment a few years ago when I was like, I want to really focus my time on and energy to help other people have these moments of insight or aha moments or realizing they can pivot and actually start creating what they want in their lives.
So, what kind of tools do you use in your coaching process to help people do that?
Yeah, I lean on a lot of work from Gabor Mate and Deepak Chopra. I use tools that I've learned through Tara Brach. So my favorite tool actually that I use and I encourage people to try is RAIN. And so if I could leave one sort of tool for people here today, it would be RAIN. And RAIN stands for recognize, acknowledge, or accept, investigate, and then nourish. And so anytime people are in an activated emotional state or a negative emotion, they can sit away from their current situations, whether it's you go to the bathroom or you sit alone for a few moments and you just recognize, okay, what is it that I'm feeling? Anxiety? All right, we've named it. I recognize it. I'm accepting and acknowledging that I feel anxious. And then the I is investigating, why do I feel anxious? What is the reason I feel anxious? And once you have figured out why, you can start to comfort yourself from a place of compassion. Like, it's okay to feel this way. Michael, like emotions are just children that want to be seen and heard. And the more you shove them down, the more chaos
Yeah.
ensues. So when you comfort those emotions and you understand them, they move through you naturally. Emotion, energy in motion. That's how we can assist ourselves in getting better at letting the emotions move through us.
Yeah. And something that comes to mind along that same line is the whole issue that you've already talked about some, which is talking about what you feel, whoever you are, and be willing to express emotions, be willing to be honest with yourself and with other people. And again, I just think that we so often are taught not to do that. It's so unfortunate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're not taught about anything. And I have a long list for the education curriculum, let me tell you. Yeah, boundaries, emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, yeah, reframing. Like there's just so many things. So many things.
So you've helped a lot of people. Primarily, who do you coach? Who are your typical clients, or does it matter?
So I typically coach people between ages 25 to 40, but I actually recently had a senior reach out to me after she found an article in the paper, and so I'm not excluding people from who I work with, but generally speaking, that's sort of the age range is 25 to 45. People who maybe have reached the career they thought they were always going to do and get there, and they're like, this isn't it. This isn't it for me. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Or maybe they're in a relationship and they're stuck and feeling burnt out from that. So, yeah, that's the age group that I work in because regardless of what issue you're working on, career, relationship, sense of self, these tools will help you pivot to really realign with your purpose.
So how do you help people go from being stuck to realigning and empowered?
Through my four-step process. So I don't want to give too much away, but people will just need to read the book to find out.
Well, if you can describe maybe a little bit in general, just enough
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So just like I was saying before, like first getting really clear on how people are operating. So that's the observe part. And then starting to understand themselves through the different patterns that are coming up on a weekly, daily basis. So it's a lot of investigating and getting data in the first couple weeks. And then after that, we start to understand how to rewire things through different tools that I introduce. And we do it in small, manageable steps. My coaching programs are either 6 weeks or 12 weeks long. And throughout that process, we try things, and everyone's different. So some tools stick, more than others, and that's okay. I just have the approach that I move them through. And by the end, people are having amazing experiences and feeling like it's life changing. And I have, a lot of people reaching out with testimonials that I just, really help fuel me to continue this work.
Have you done this at all with children?
I haven't, but it's so interesting that you asked that because I really love working with youth. I work in a restorative justice volunteer program here in my community, and it's all about providing mentorship and being a role model for youth that have maybe lost their way. And that's definitely an area I'm curious about. It's funny that you mentioned that. Hmm.
Well, it just, the reality is that the earlier we can get people to think about this and change and go more toward the kind of processes that you promote, the better it would be. But I also realize that it's a little bit different process with youth, I'm sure, than it is with older people, adults, and so on. But I was just curious if you had done any, or if you have any plans to maybe open any kind of programs more for youth to help them the same way, because clearly there are a lot of stuck youth out there.
Yeah, very much so. And to be honest, like with the amount of technology and information overload and state of the world, like the amount of overwhelm and anxiety among youth right now is just through the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely something that's been on my mind, and I'm very curious as to what sparked you to ask that because it's definitely something I've been exploring. So
Well, it just popped into my head that that's an
yeah.
interesting thing to think about. Um, and I would also think that the earlier we can, and in this case, you can reach children, the more open they probably are to listening to suggestions. If you can establish a rapport with them, the reality is that at a younger age they're not as locked in to ways of doing things as they might be later on. My late wife was a teacher for 10 years, and she loved teaching second and third graders. And she said, even by the time you're getting to fourth graders, they're starting to be a little bit more rigid in their mindsets. And so the result was that it was harder sometimes to reach them. And I think that's true. And I know that in everything I've ever read or heard, the younger the child, the more open they are, and the more they're able to learn. Like younger children are better able to learn more than one language and so on. And the earlier you can get to children, probably the better it would be all the way around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely an avenue I've been curious in exploring myself. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
I wonder what the techniques would be, because I'm sure that the techniques are going to be a little bit different than what you face with older people.
Not necessarily. Like I think at any age it's good to learn about boundaries and why they're important and understanding what we think they are versus what they actually are. And same with, seeking validation outside of ourselves. Like I don't think it's quite I think it might be a little bit more stuck when we're older,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's very different. Yeah, I guess it just depends. Just depends.
Well, you talk a lot about boundaries, authenticity, and purpose. How does all that really go into your whole coaching program?
Sorry, in what sense? Like, can you ask that at maybe a different way?
Well, you've mentioned boundaries a number of times, and authenticity and so on. So I'm just curious, how do they fit into what you do and what you
Right.
want people to do?
Okay, so people will come to me, and they're, feeling burnt out. They're constantly on, they're juggling
Ah,
career, family, relationships, digital overload. They don't have space to breathe, let alone, connect with themselves. And underneath that, there's often a lot of people pleasing or fear of not being enough or living by other people's expectations. And so, so many of them are feeling exhausted, unfulfilled, lack of worth when they come to me and they're just like, I don't know what else to do. And often a misconception about burnout is that you need to work harder for things to get better, or you just need a small break to reset and then you're fine. But if we don't change anything in the mindset, then people are just going to go back to the way they were.
how would you really define burnout?
I would define burnout as people feeling helpless, feeling like they're living on autopilot, exhaustion, um, feeling like there's just so much to manage and they don't have the time or the energy. Uh, Again, feeling like they can't or don't know about boundaries. Um, and yeah, they're unfulfilled. They're not feeling like themselves. And so what I would suggest for anyone who's feeling that way is one of the things you can do is just pause, create a moment of space for yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Ask yourself what you really need. And it sounds simple, but most of us are so disconnected
Hmm.
own needs that we don't even ask the question. But that pause is our power. It can be the doorway to listening to yourself again. And from there, you can start making choices that really align with what you actually want.
One of the things that I suggest, and we do it in Live Like a Guide Dog, and I suggest it to people whenever we get in these discussions, is no matter what you say about not having time, you absolutely have time, especially worst case at the end of the day when you're starting to fall asleep. Take the time to analyze yourself. Take the time to become more introspective because you have that time because you're in bed, for heaven's sake. So you're really not supposed to be doing anything else or shouldn't, but it's a great time to start to think about yourself. And I think that's a great time to deal with all the things that you're talking about here as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and people have time for what they prioritize. That's the truth. And whether that's something people want to accept, it's absolutely the truth. You will make time for the things that are important to you.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it really comes down to, isn't it? That you're
Mhm.
always going to make time for the things that you find are important to you. And the reality is that you'll be able to progress when you discover that some of the things that are important to you are the kinds of things that we're talking about here that will avoid burnout or get you away from that.
Mhm. Absolutely.
We just have to really, and that gets back to boundaries and authenticity and purpose. It just gets back to knowing what you really need, and ultimately no one can know that better than you about yourself.
Absolutely. We have to reconnect to what matters and build the life that gives energy instead of only draining it.
Yeah, and we can do that, but we do need to take the time to make that happen, and that's why I really suggest do it at the end of the day. It's quiet, and or you can make it quiet, and you can really learn by doing that. You don't have to watch TV until an hour after you've fallen asleep and then you wake up and discover the TV's on. You can take the time to become a little bit more introspective and learn more about yourself that way. And that's exactly what will happen if you really think about it.
100%. And, at my book launch, people were asking, like, how did you write a book? And it was like, it's not hard in the sense that it's hard. It's hard because you have to show up every day. But that consistency, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, like the consistency is everything. So showing up for yourself in small ways or whatever feels manageable at first will naturally give you more energy to wake up early and give yourself more time. It just happens that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. What's your favorite tool that you use with clients?
So it would be the one I shared with you earlier, rain. It has been very instrumental for people in transforming how long it takes them to go from a place of fear or anxiety or resentment to just processing it and being neutral. And it's amazing.
And again, just to reiterate it, RAIN stands for.
Recognize, accept or acknowledge, investigate, and nourish.
That's cheating. You get both spellings of rain in there. That works. But
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. Um, and I'm assuming that you've had pretty good success with people. Have you had anyone that just resists, even though they come to you and they say, "Oh, I'm burnt out" and all that, but you start to work with them and they just resist, or do you find that you're able to usually break through?
So it's funny because a lot of people that come to me are very resistant to it because of the nature of burnout, where people feel like they
Hmm.
don't have the time or the energy,
Yeah.
right? At the beginning, a lot of people are very resistant, and they say so in their testimonials. At first I felt resistant, but then I didn't know that these things were actually going to give me exactly what I needed. So I've worked with a couple nurses. I worked with a woman who was managing, like, working 4 jobs, and she was super burnt out. But eventually, probably by like 2 or 3 weeks in, people are starting to feel the differences and they're all in. So yeah, it does take a little bit to get them there, but once they're there, they're flying. So
Yeah. Oh, that is so really cool because you're able to break through and get people to do exactly what we've been talking about, which is so important to do.
yeah, yeah, and the moments for me that just feel like, oh, this is the work I'm meant to do is seeing someone go from that place of burnout or defeat because they're working a job they don't enjoy to starting their own business that's leveraging their creativity and their passion, or they've repaired a relationship, or they're finally feeling confident in themselves. Like, there's no better gift to me than to see that change in somebody.
Mm. What are some of the most common struggles that you see in people? I know we've probably talked a lot about it, but it's good to summarize. But what are some of the kind of the most common struggles that you find in people, and why do you think that people are experiencing so much burnout? And I'm assuming that those two are related.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if we were to talk about career, people that are managing a career that is very demanding, and that is all they do, and they have no energy for time, like for things outside of work.
Yeah.
Um, what they say is that they're feeling numb, or they're living on autopilot, or they don't recognize themselves anymore. Another shared that she was really scared of leaving because of a financial aspect. And so I think at that point, you just start to flip the narrative and ask, well, what are you sacrificing by staying? Right? So, like, maybe we need to get a part-time job while we're exploring our creativity and building a new business for ourselves. But it's 100% possible. And these programs are not meant to make these drastic changes overnight. They're small, incremental, consistent changes that over time bring you to a place of alignment with what you actually want to create in life.
Do you find that there are some people who feel I can't stay here, I've got to leave, or this boss isn't good, or whatever, when in reality it's something different, and that a mindset shift makes them discover that they really are in a good, well, they're in a good position, or they have a good career or whatever, but their perspective has just been off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, someone said something to me the other day that it stuck with me at the time, but it was something like, if you can't get out of it, you better get into it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's like, yeah, sometimes it's just with how you're showing up for yourself and for the people around you. And that's the shift that needs to happen. So it's not necessarily about leaving a job. Thank you for bringing that up. It is about changing your life from the inside. And a huge part of that is mindset and the energy that you're bringing to a situation, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So,
Yeah. Um, it's like, well, one of the things that I constantly tell people is there are a lot of times that something occurs to you or that you're involved with you have no control over because you're not the one that did it, or you're not the one that directly made this happen, but you always have the choice of how you deal with whatever happens. So even if you don't have any direct influence over something occurring, you have always the opportunity to determine how you're going to deal with it. And that's always something that I think is so important for people to analyze and think about. But I think all too many people don't.
absolutely, yeah, the power is in our pause. And that's something I tell people all the time. The power is in your pause. Slow down, take a second, don't respond right away, and then come from
Yeah.
a place of power, and that it changes everything.
Well, the reality is that the more of that you do, the more you pause, the more you think about it. The fact is, the quicker over time you'll be able to make a decision because you're teaching yourself how to do that.
Truly. Yep.
And so for a while, you may not be able to, or you are not confident enough to be able to make a decision right away, which is fine. You should pause. But the fact of the matter is, I think what I really describe it as, and I think it's so true, is you need to learn to listen to your inner voice, because your inner voice is going to tell you what you need to do. And you just need to really learn to focus on that. But we don't. We always say, oh, that's too easy. That can't be the right answer, when it really is.
It really is. And so, again, that pause is also about space, right? So, when I feel triggered by something, I will take the space to let myself come back down from that and then ask myself what I really want. Or, again, coming back to boundaries, if someone asks me if I want to do something, and I'm a very social person and I love connection, so right away I want to say yes, I'll, do that thing with you. Now I have a really beautiful way to still show that it's like something I want to partake in, but honor myself as well by saying, I love this idea. I need a little bit of time to figure out if I can fully commit to this, and I'll get back to you at this time. So it shows integrity not only to myself, but to that person as well, and it showing up in a way that it, like, if I have capacity to do that, then I will.
Yeah. Well, if somebody listening to this kind of feels unfulfilled or stuck, exhausted, what's the very first step that you would suggest that they take?
Just like I was saying, just take a pause.
I knew you were going to say that. Go ahead.
Take a pause, create a moment of space. Ask yourself what's really going on and what you really want. And then ask yourself if your actions or the choices that you're about to make align with that.
Yeah, and the reason I asked the question was really just to get you to reiterate that and to get people to hear it again, because we have to really come together in our own minds and decide what we want to do. And we shouldn't have knee-jerk reactions. There's no need to do that if we think about it and really take the time to ponder what makes the most sense to do. And we'll get the right answers if we work at it.
100%. You just have to put in a little bit of curiosity and time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
What do you think is one of the greatest misunderstandings about burnout, and what is the truth that you really wish more people knew?
People think burnout is just about being tired or needing a vacation, but it's so much deeper than that. And, it's a sign that we've been living out of alignment with ourselves, and that rest alone isn't going to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Real recovery is coming from changing the way that we live and setting boundaries and reconnecting with what matters and building a life that gives energy instead of draining it.
Yeah. Again, it gets back to that authenticity thing.
Yep. That thing.
That thing. Yeah. What are some of the biggest transformations that you've seen from your clients that you're really pleased about?
I've seen clients go from anxious and depleted to, like I said, starting businesses that they love. And that wasn't even something that we worked on together. It was like just a few tweaks, as simple but not easy shifts that they made. And then I get emails or comments about how they're starting businesses that they love and they're full-time booked in that. So like that's been a big transformation for a few of my clients. One woman was trying to find a relationship and she had tried everything and from all different angles and it wasn't working. And truthfully, she needed to come back to herself and align with herself. And when she did that, at 9 months later, she found the love of her life. And one client said she stopped feeling numb for the first time in years. Another shared that she actually laughed and felt joy again. And these transformations are powerful because they're not just surface changes. They're life-changing shifts in how people see themselves and what they feel like they can create in the world.
And ultimately, isn't most of this transformation or shift really a change in one's mindset?
Yes, it is mindset, and it is also taking the time, having the courage, and having awareness of how we are operating in our daily lives and why.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then shifting that.
Well, tell us all about the book. When did it launch? And what's happened? And what do you see coming down the line for it, and so on? And I
Yes.
know you have a lot to talk about, so tell us.
So the magic of realigning from the inside out is very much in line with what I coach about, which is about bringing us back home to ourselves. And I share a lot of personal storytelling and scientific connections and soulful practices that I've tried that have worked really well for me. And I really invite readers to reconnect with themselves. So it's sort of like a guidebook. Like the first half of the book is a lot of stories. The second half is more tools and strategies. And overall, it's the idea that, the answers aren't out there. They have to start within. And we weren't meant to just get through the day. It's exhausting to try to fix and control everything out there. The thing is, we have no control over what's happening out there, anyways. And so we have our one wild and precious life. And it's like, what are we going to do with that? Especially in a world that's constantly pulling us outward with notifications and expectations and distractions. Yeah, I really believe this is how we show up to make a positive difference in the world by working on ourselves and spreading that outward.
So, when did the book launch?
August 21st was my book launch
Okay.
here on Vancouver Island, and I'm actually organizing a little book tour.
Oh,
Yeah, across the province here. So, yeah, that's stay tuned. It'll be next month, I think.
so have you had any kind of book tours, or what kind of publicity have you had so far for the book?
So I was working with a publicist, which was very new to me, and I was able to connect with some press. So a couple of newspapers came to my book launch. I think there was like 50 people that showed up, and the mayor came to give a speech, and he wants to meet with me for lunch next week and talk more about what I could do with the book, which is great because I really think I can use it as a tool for helping in my own community. And maybe even offering organizations some opportunities to explore strategies to get their employees out of burnout. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what's happened so far, and a lot of bookstores have taken it up. So I've got all the local bookstores here have it. Available on Amazon. Um, yeah, and it's actually a bestseller. I reached bestseller status in three different
Oh,
categories.
what categories?
Personal development, personal growth, and I think anxiety was the third one. I have to look back at it.
Well, definitely congratulations are in order for doing that, though.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that is definitely kind of cool to have that kind of situation and that kind of status happening with the book. It makes it very exciting and certainly gratifying in so many ways. When did you start coaching? When did you actually start your company?
So I started coaching, let's see, no, a year and a half ago. So honestly, formally, not that long.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's already just something I'm so passionate about and getting more and more positive feedback on. So yeah, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm just getting started.
Well, that's fair. That's fine.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna we think you're gonna go far. At least I think you're gonna go quite a distance with all of this. Do you just coach people directly one on one? Do you do virtual coaching? Do you coach outside of British Columbia and all that?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mostly work virtually because then I can be accessible to more people. Um, so that's how I actually prefer to work is virtually. But I'm open to, meeting people where they're at and however they want to communicate. So I've been doing phone calls with one person and then Zoom with another. And if people do want to do in person, I'm open to it. It's just a little bit more restrictive in
Yeah.
terms of reach. Um, but I'm also going to be doing some wellness workshops and talks around these tools and strategies I've learned, and using my book as a tool as I go through the province next month. So it's not just going to be about the book, it's going to be presenting and giving workshops and talks around this work, and then presenting my book as a tool to use in helping people get back to a place of alignment and energy again in their life.
Well, on your website, we haven't talked about that yet, but on your website, do you have any videos of talks or anything like that that you've done?
Not of any talks. I think my first one, to be honest with you, is was at the book launch, but it went
Right.
so well that I'm just sort of I'm adding fuel to that fire, and I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah, so I haven't done any talks beyond that one yet. Uh, but I have some testimonials and things on my website. So those are the
Good.
videos that are there.
Well, for people who are listening to this today who feel like they want to do so, how can they reach out to you and connect with you? And what happens?
Yeah, so the best
Hmm.
way is to reach out to me through my website or I have a link tree link that I think I might have sent you, Michael, but it has all my different links for working on with coaching or reaching out in different ways and all
Right.
my contact information. So Linktree, Instagram are my main ones, but also obviously email and my website.
So what
Um,
is your website?
it's www.cassandra with a K Hamilton, which is my last name.com.
So that's easy, www.cassandrahamilton.com.
Yeah.
And
And on Instagram, it's at Cassandra with a K underscore Hamilton. So
okay.
yeah,
Have you done much with LinkedIn?
I have. Yeah. I also have LinkedIn. Yep. And I have TikTok and I have Facebook, all the things.
All the different suspects, all the usual suspects.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that is really pretty cool. I hope that people will reach out
Yeah.
because you've clearly offered a lot of very useful and relevant information, and I think that it's extremely important that people take it to heart. And I hope that maybe we're going to be able to have contributed to your getting some more people in the business. To
Oh, I really appreciate that, Michael. And I know you've done so much work with people as well and inspired others, astronomically. So I really appreciate and feel grateful for the time that you've given me today.
well, this has been a lot of fun, and we'll have to do it again. You'll have to come on at some point in the future and let us know how things are going, and how the book is doing, and how everything else is happening.
Yes,
But I
absolutely.
really do value the fact that you've spent so much time with us today.
Thank you so much.
At least we're in the same time zone. That helps.
Yes, that's true.
Well, Cassandra, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank all of you out there for listening to us and being with us and watching us, whichever you do. I'd love to hear from you as well. I'd like to get your thoughts and your opinions. Please reach out to me at Michael H.I., that's Michaelhi, at Accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. I'd like to get your thoughts, like to know what you thought of today's episode. Wherever you are experiencing the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We value your reviews highly, and we would really appreciate you giving us reviews of this episode and the podcast in general. And for anyone out there, including you, Cassandra, who might know of anyone else who ought to be a guest on Unstoppable Mindset and tell their own story, please reach out. Let us know. Email me, again, michaelhi at accessibe.com. Love to hear from you. You can also go to our website, which is www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. So that's michaelhingson.com/podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So whatever you do, we really appreciate you being a part of us today, and we value very much all your time. So Cassandra, again, thanks very much. This has been cool.
Thanks, Michael.